Ladies and gentlemen, let's Red Gaming Tentacom video. We're going to be discussing recent rumors concerning the Xbox One's memory configuration and GPU configuration. The rumors basically state that the amount of memory, the physical RAM on the Xbox One, has been increased from 8GB to 12GB. However, this is 99% very unlikely, and we'll go into that first and then we'll speak about the GPU speeds as well. So, as many of you know, the configuration for the Xbox One features 8GB of DDR3 memory, and basically that memory is running in dual channel configurations. Now, there were multiple sources on this, and a lot of them have been conflicting. But basically speaking, the idea behind it is because the Xbox One's operating system is quite a large footprint. It takes about 3 gigs of memory, which, to give you an idea, is around 3 times that of the PlayStation 4's. So the idea behind the rumor was that the Xbox One will have more memory, or have another couple of gigs basically, so that effectively speaking, it doesn't have to worry so much about the memory footprint. However, there are numerous reasons that it's most likely false, despite the fact that many sites at the moment are actually reporting that it's going to most likely be true. First of all, a lot of these rumors started from the Examiner.com, and there was an article on there that has been since updated. I'm going to read you guys the update from the source, whomever the source may be. The bump was supposed to have been planned prior to the initial reveal, and the actual changes would have taken place during E3 week. Effectively, the way the RAM is set out on the machine, Microsoft they could be more efficient without sacrificing the amount set aside for OS operations. They immediately reacted. Physical RAM won't be upped in time for November release, as it was too late even during the initial reveal. But developers are saying, in terms of efficiency, the RAM and reported yield problems, Microsoft have made some snappy breakthrough and gave impression it was a straight up increase in clock speed, hence the rumor. And so, basically speaking, you guys can take that as what it's worth. Now, there are a couple of reasons that I personally don't believe this rumor is true. The first is that it's pretty damn late in the game now for them to change these configurations. I'm not saying it's impossible, because to say it's impossible is to be unrealistic. Anything is possible. But it's not exactly a hop, skip, and a jump away now from November. Second reason, as far as I understand it, the APU, and I have done some research into this, and from what I've found out, the APU inside the Xbox One is dual channel. So unless they've done some last minute modifications, it would not really make sense for them to have 12GB of RAM. If you guys want more information on this, by all means go and check out the memory configurations of both dual and treble channel, tri-channel memory, and you'll get the idea straight away. For example, a tri-set of memory would be 12GB. I use that simply because, and that would be 3 sticks of 4. I know, that's incredibly complicated math, right? 3 times 4, whatever next. So that would mean that the closest dual configuration would be either 8 gigs, or overshooting that and be something like 16 gigs, or something like whatever, 24 or whatever configuration. So you guys could get the idea. It'd be 16, or it'd be 24 if it's tri-channel, or it'd be I'm not going to bother to go through the whole math. You guys get the idea. But that's one of the primary reasons that I don't believe this rumor exists, because as far as I understand it from the specs I'm looking at, and I have Googled, and from what the confirmed specifications are, it appears that yes, it is dual channel, in which case it doesn't make sense for them to somehow stick this in. Thirdly, as mentioned, the boards are most likely pretty much set in stone. The only ways that I could really understand this working is if they said that it was 16GB of memory, in which case it's possible, because what they could just simply do is use larger capacity DIMMs, and so larger capacity chips basically, and that would make sense. So they could basically just pretty much use the same pin layout. And obviously they'd have to change a few things here and there, such as BIOS configurations, and more to the point as well, of course, some of the early games that are being developed. So for example, let's say you are a developer, and you are developing right this second for the Xbox One, you would be using, let's say, 5 gigs of RAM for your game. Let's just say you're using the maximum available. Therefore, it doesn't make sense, you would not have taken into account the extra available RAM. So you would have been using it as if it had the 5 gigs. So of course later on, however, new games would be probably using or utilizing the full extent of the memory. So if it is true, which as I said, personally I don't think it is true. I think it's to the point now where they could probably do it. I could probably get away with 16 gigs, but it would obviously raise the price up quite substantially. I'm not going to bother to check the exact prices right this second, but it's roughly double the price. And from what we've heard, Microsoft are keen to keep the price down as low as possible because, well, the system's already pretty darn expensive. The APU that they're creating is pretty damn expensive because of the ESRAM on board, as well as the Move engines, which, as many regular viewers will know, have been included simply because of the DDR3, as well as the Kinect sensor, which is one of the primary reasons the PS4 is cheaper, actually, because obviously it doesn't include the eye. We know the bosses at Sony said that the decision to not include the eye, the camera basically, towards the end was basically to undercut the Xbox. It was to keep it as cheap as possible, is what it comes down to. And so they're not really going to want to make this system more expensive because, let's say it costs another $50, just an arbitrary figure. Let's say it's another $50. That's either increases the price of the system by $50, and that's not really going to happen because people are already pretty pissed at the price already, or they take a $50 hit. And either way is not exactly happy. Plus, of course, they have to worry about power inside the unit. Will they have enough energy to run it all? Will they even have enough time? And they probably as well started manufacturing the system, unless it was back just before the system manufactured started to become under manufacture, shall we say. We do know, however, now they have started to fabricate the full system because of the recent ESRAM comments. In other words, of the fact that people are reporting the fact that the ESRAM works a lot better because, well, there's previous videos on that, but basically, in fact, it's apparently supposed to do read and write operations a lot better. However, there's a hell of a lot of controversy around that as well. So, that leads us to another rumour, the GPU speed increase. As far as we understand it right now, the GPU of the Xbox One runs at 800 MHz, which is exactly the same as the PS4. The reason that the PS4 has more computing power than the Xbox One isn't the actual clock speed, it's simply that it has more GCN cores, which are basically the building blocks, if you will, of the Radeon 7000 range. So, for example, the Radeon 7970, just as an example. So, there have been numerous rumours, and I don't even think I can keep count at this point because they seem to just pop up every couple of weeks, a rumour to do with the GPU clock speed. The first rumour was that it was running at 800 MHz, so in other words, the initial one. And then there were subsequent rumours that they were trying to pack on more GCN cores. There were other rumours about they were worried about the stability of the clock, actually. And there were actually rumours that internally, they were having to underclock the GPU. Rather than running it at, say, 800 MHz, they were needing to run it at anything from 700 to 600 MHz. And so, obviously, that meant that if they were, say, running at, say, 600, that would mean quite a significant decrease in GPU computing power. It would actually mean that it would go slightly under the 1 T-flop. The primary reason behind all of this was a simple one: heat. The APU combination, as I said, with the ESRAM, the CPU, of course, from the Jaguar, the GPU from the Jaguar, which of course is the graphics processing unit, as well as the Move engines, and goodness knows what else has been in there as well, as all the various controllers and stuff as well, because obviously it's an APU. It put out a lot of heat, is what it comes down to. And so there were rumours that they were needing to underclock it. Now, then there were subsequent rumours that this isn't actually the case. They're actually running it at the recommended specifications, because as far as we understand it, the GPU can actually go up to 1 gigahertz, 1000 megahertz in other words. So they are slightly under the maximum, just as the AMD Jaguar, the CPU side of things, is running at 1.6, and it can actually go to about 2 gigahertz. But the reason they're not doing this, well, there's two reasons. One, yields. In other words, how many parts can you manufacture without those parts being wasted? In other words, think of it this way. Let's just use made-up figures, because they're the easiest to deal with sometimes. And let's assume that you have 10 parts. And let's assume that running it at 800 megahertz means 9 out of 10 of those parts are usable in a system. In other words, at that speed, 9 of those 10 parts that you've just made can actually run on your system, and more to the point that they will be stable on that system, they will not crash, and so forth and so forth. So on average, 9 out of 10 GPUs that you make, or GPU parts that you make, will work fine. And there's nothing you could do about this, by the way. There are always manufacturing inefficiencies or defects. It's just part of everything. This happens for CPUs as well. This is one of the reasons that speed binning exists. So for example, if you guys notice GPUs and CPUs, a lot of the time the high-end parts come out first, and then a little bit later the lower-end parts come out first. The reason behind this is quite simple. They say, oh okay, so the max, obviously there are improvements to the clock speeds all the time. That's one of the reasons that, for example, we go to from like a 2 gigahertz processor to like a 2.4. But the initial part may be, say, let's say on a GPU, oh, I don't know, let's just use 1000 megahertz just as an arbitrary figure. What happens, say, 2 months later is that they start getting a stockpile of parts that just simply can't run at that speed. Now, they've got one of two choices. One, they could burn them. In other words, they could, recycle them. Or, more efficiently, if they notice quite a lot of these parts going into that type of bin, speed bin if you will, then they can simply start making parts of that. They can disable them. So, for example, let's say they have parts that go at 950 megahertz, or 970 megahertz, or whatever. And in other words, they can't quite make the 1 gigahertz as advertised. What they can do is say, okay, this goes to 950, this one goes to 970, this one's at 940, okay, let's make a part that's 900 megahertz, and that's how they do it. And then they simply put the BIOS on that card to do that. And more to the point, this is why, let's say you were to buy a graphics card, and I was to buy a graphics card exactly the same as yours. So let's just make up a card. Let's just say it's the Radeon 55,000, right? So I buy the Radeon 55,000, you buy the Radeon 55,000, and we were to both overclock that GPU. One of the reasons that you would get a different clock speed to me is quite simply that the GPU parts were made of slightly different quality. In other words, just pure luck of the draw. Obviously, there are other factors as well that I'm not taking into account for simplicity's sake, such as how good your PSU is, stability on the rails, heat inside the case, and so forth. But I'm going a little bit off the beaten path here, guys, and I am somewhat oversimplifying this because I don't want to really make this a whole speed thing. But some people have asked me to explain it a little bit further, and so this is a basic understanding. By all means, you can Google it. I might even put a video, an article, or something out myself as well, because it's quite an interesting subject. So, as I said, there's the speed bin issue, and then there's the heat and power issue. Power is obvious, how much energy it draws, and obviously consoles, they want to make it as little as possible. You guys are very familiar, of course, with the Red Ring of Death. Who isn't? And Microsoft got absolutely blasted to smithereens. They literally just got ruffle stomped by the media and gamers and everyone else. And I actually heard of several people who said, you know what, bollocks to this, I am going to get rid of my Xbox 360 because this is the second one that's red ringed of theft, and I'm going to get a PS3. Having said that, to be fair, I also heard of numerous people who said, you know what, forget this PS3 malarkey when the PSN decided to get hacked and so forth, and they went to the Xbox or PC or whatever system. So I suppose people are always jumping ship, and just sometimes a little thing triggers them. Regardless, he says, getting back onto the beaten path, yeah, so effectively speaking, there are numerous issues, and so I'm not saying that this is not the case, because Microsoft haven't confirmed the GPU clock speed. That's quite important. Similarly speaking, they've not confirmed the CPU clock speed, and to be fair, neither have Sony. We know about the GPU clock speed because of the fact that they've given the 1.84 G-flops. This is one of the reasons, of course, that we have that number of the clock speed on the Xbox One, but they've not really confirmed it. I believe, actually, the PS4, Sony have confirmed the GPU clock speed of the PS4. I'm like 95% sure of that. But they've definitely not confirmed it of the CPU, and there's a few other specifications as well on both machines that are they're keeping stim on, if you will. I'm also going to, please remind me on this, guys, I'm going to also do a video on the audio processing unit of the Xbox One, because it's kind of a tasty little morsel, and there's a few other bits and pieces as well that I need to go into. I'll be doing those over the next couple of weeks, including cloud computing, VirtualBox, difference between DDR3, GDDR5, because there are some distinct differences such as latency and so forth, as well as bandwidth, but that's a fairly obvious one, and various other bits and pieces that numerous viewers have been asking, including GPU comparisons of the Xbox One and PS4 versus desktop models, and others, what they actually would equal to, as well as some PC stuff as well, such as how to build your own PC and what parts you should use. I've been a little bit behind on that, so I'll go into that as well. So, yeah, I'm almost positive that we won't be seeing a GPU increase. I'm not saying we won't, because things always surprise me. That's just how the industry works. They are always trying to better their odds. And so obviously, if they could get it up to, say, let's just use an arbitrary figure, let's just use a 850 megahertz, that would be phenomenal. From the perspective of gamers, and also from the perspective of those who are actually programming for the system. Because, okay, many of us who are looking at the specifications, including myself, by the way, have absolutely no intention of releasing a game on the Xbox One, or for the PS4, or the PC, or whatever else for that matter. But that doesn't to say that I don't want better performance, because obviously prettier graphics and ooh shiny is what, is awesome and helps wow me as a gamer. More to the point as well, more powerful system, easier to use system is good for developers and programmers, because, well, more power equals easier access, and this, of course, has been one of the philosophies of Sony. As many of you are aware, Mark Cerny bangs on and waxes on quite consistently about this. Not that I blame him. It's one, of course, Mark Cerny, just in case you're unfamiliar, is the lead architect on the PlayStation 4. And his philosophy, or Sony's philosophy around the PS4, was to develop a cheap, in terms of to manufacture and to develop for system that has a quick as possible turnaround. So in other words, you don't need to worry too long before you can get something out that works on the system. In other words, as he would call it, time to triangle. So anyway, as I said, as far as we understand it from the latest reports and from the fact that the APU, is dual channel, and the fact that it's so late into the game now, I don't think we're going to be seeing 12 gigs. I wouldn't be amazed if it turned out to be true. I wouldn't exactly be like, holy crap, because it's possible, but I doubt it. I would say that if they are going to bump it up, and I would say that 16 gigabytes is probably more logical, because it would be easier. It would also give the PS4 a disadvantage in terms of the amount of memory. If they went to 12, it would basically be pretty much even. This is, and by the way, guys, I have released another video on this just a couple of days ago, although my mind blanks what the video is, but you can just check out recent uploads or something, or you can type in Xbox One memory, or yeah, that'll probably get you it as well. And one of the concerns and one of the problems I have with the Xbox One has always been this operating system. Actually, no, that's what it is. Xbox One operating system, so you can search for that. And I think one of the problems is because of the configuration of the Xbox One's memory configuration, more to the point, the actual operating system configuration itself. As you guys are aware, you get like a base OS, and then you get two OSs on top of that, and that's why basically a large amount of memory is being hoovered up. This mostly goes towards multitasking, and so I put out a video, as I said, that basically was going about what I would like to have seen changed, or now especially, of course, Don Matrick, of course, his departure. I released a video saying what I'd like to see changed, and one of those is to see a somewhat less emphasis on the multitasking, simply because of that reason. Anyway, I think I've spoken quite substantially about this, and I've probably got slightly, he says, off topic. What date is it right now? He says, looking at his calendar rather badly. It is the 10th of July. Two other tiny little points I'd like to make. Firstly, we are running a competition on the channel. That will be ending, he says, as he cannot actually remember the date he set for his own competition, the 17th. So you have around 1 week now. I started it on Monday, so it finishes on the 17th. So you guys can check that out. It is currently the featured video. If not, you can type in 4,000 subs on the channel search bar, and it will appear right there. That will give you 2 games to win, Torchlight 2 and XCOM. Enemy Unknown, both on the PC. So if you're interested in winning, you can check those out, because it's awesome and stuff. So anyway, I've spoken more than sufficiently on the subject. Hopefully it will be okay. As per normal, you can feel free to comment on the video, however I most likely will not respond on the video comments, not because I am blanking you, as many of you guys are aware by now, simply because I have literally hundreds of uploaded videos, and more to the point, I have very little time to respond to stuff, because I can't really trawl through the comments. It's that simple. So your best option, if you want to get a personal feedback from me, would be to go to facebook.com/redgamingtech, although we are getting the website sorted out very soon, including forums, by the way. But meanwhile, go to facebook.com/redgamingtech, leave a message, or you can write on the wall, whatever makes you happy, and I will be more than happy to respond. You can address it because there are several of us working on RGT in terms of the Facebook login, so your best bet would be to address it to myself, which would be either Paul or Crimson Rain, depending on which one you can be bothered to type in. Anyway, I am going to get going. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video and found it at least somewhat interesting. I will hopefully see you soon. Take care and bye for now.